Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. Joining me now is Daren Mathew-Ward, a journalist in Antigua, to talk about the vehicle gate, if you will, a major scandal breaking there in Antigua related to government procurement of vehicles. Daren, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Callistra. Good afternoon to everyone in the beautiful island of the Spice Island of Grenada.
So, certainly, from what we are hearing here in St. George's, a
Mhm.
big scandal really involving the procurement of all of those vehicles, including Broncos that I was told were purchased for undercover work. You could not possibly find a more conspicuous vehicle for undercover work.
Yes.
What can you tell us at this time about all of this?
This scandal started with the Prime Minister, and it has been with the Prime Minister ever since. Most of what we know are as a result of disclosures that he has made publicly, either in Parliament in response to questions or on his weekly radio program. That's quite very well listened to in the country because, I mean, that's how most people know what's going on within the halls of power in this country. Um, Essentially, it started, my recollection is that it started with they were apparently going somewhere and they saw two Broncos parked outside one of the police stations on the northern side of the island. And it was, as you just pointed out, a Bronco. Why would there be two Broncos parked up at the police? And the impression was that they were ostensibly connected with the police. Anyway, that is how folks started to get a sense that something was off. And essentially, certainly within the last week and a half, 2 weeks, the disclosure was that a number of vehicles, the figures have varied from 200 to 300 to 350. We don't really know. Well, I certainly don't know exactly how many vehicles have been involved in this. But there were vehicles that were procured through improper channels, bypassing the Ministry of Finance, in which he is responsible for. The Ministry of Public Works is also involved. I learned very recently that the Ministry of Public Works is responsible for all government procurement. So you really should not be procuring vehicles without the approval of the Ministry of Public Works. They're the ones responsible for that. And then, of course, the Ministry of Finance has sign off. And finally,
Well, go ahead.
final point on that very quickly. Any vehicle over $80,000 would have to go through an additional process or procedure, and that was also not followed. So the questions are who would have signed off, who was involved, and how is it that the Minister of Public Works and the Minister of Finance did not know? And the reason why, too, this is a final point, but this is the final point before you ask your next question. The Minister of Finance is the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Public Works is the Prime Minister's wife, Honorable Maria Browne. So, of course, that in and of itself, you know, is part of the reason why this thing has gotten to where it's at in terms of the concern that has been expressed in the public space about how this could have happened under their watch, and a lot of questions are being asked.
In fact, Darren, that is what I was about to ask you. That, as far as I understand
Mm.
it, it is the prime minister's wife who is involved. So
Yeah,
you have this marital couple who are at the
right.
center of this major scandal, and
Hmm.
Antigua and Barbuda is not the only country in the Caribbean where you have this sort of husband and
Hmm.
wife duo in
Right.
in the cabinet, in the well, the parliament might be one thing, but certainly in the executive, in the cabinet, which just
Right.
reeks of conflict of interest. And I saw a report where Prime Minister Gaston Browne was praising his wife, the Minister of
Right.
Works and Transport, for her handling
Hmm.
of this.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
have not heard of an investigation being announced by the Prime Minister. I know that Jamal Pringle and the opposition have called for an investigation. But since
Correct.
you preparing to come on the show. Have you heard that the government has
No,
finally done the responsible thing
no,
to do and
no,
ask for an
no. I
investigation?
was just in preparation for this discussion. I actually did a quick scan, a simple Google search of the headlines over the last few days. I'll just go through them. 4 days ago, the Prime Minister says that 30 vehicles returned to car dealerships, denies the Minister of Works' involvement. That's, of course, his wife. Opposition leader demands independent inquiry. That's 3 days ago. Unassigned government vehicles to be sold at public auction following an audit. So that's what we've heard so far, that there will be an audit carried out. And there has been an audit between, well, of course, government, within the government departments responsible or involved, and of course, the relations with the car dealers in terms of the transactions that would have taken place. And so we've heard about this internal audit, but we have not heard of an investigation. And I'll tell you why I think that is. The government's position is if there is an investigation and if they go the route of legal action, that is a situation that is likely to mushroom in terms of causing a lot of harm and reputational damage to a number of people in this very small society. Going through a legal channel means that you're going to go to court, which involves, of course, hiring lawyers. That's an expensive enterprise. And then what happens to the money that was lost? So their approach is restitution. If you know that you have acted fraudulently or this transaction was not through the proper channels, pay the money back. We come to an agreement of restitution and all will be forgiven. I'm paraphrasing and putting it in its simplest terms. Reports are, this was yesterday, that one of the main car dealers involved in this whole situation is rumored to have paid back or made arrangements to pay back $10 million. All right.
Yeah, I saw that headline.
This particular car dealer was one whose name was called quite a few times in the Prime Minister's last public outing on his radio program last week, Saturday. Some folks think he shouldn't have done it. His supporters say he's a transparent man. And so it depends on who you ask. Of course, the opposition is not at all impressed because they believe that he's trying to cover for his wife and he's trying to cover for himself. Both of them are at the heart of this thing, and they're not at all impressed by what has happened.
Does this, and I also understand that this one of the car dealers, I'm not sure if it's the one who has promised to make restitution of $10 million, is also a campaign financier of the ABLP.
That I don't want to go so far out and suggest that. I am not aware that this particular car dealer that is reported to have come to an arrangement to pay back $10 million. I don't think that that particular car dealer is partial to the government. I think maybe another car dealer is. But to be honest with you, a lot of these top business people in this country, they play both sides. They hedge their bets on both sides. So I would not be surprised if this particular car dealer would have, if they had, let's say, a budget of, I don't know, let's really using $10 million, 5 million here, 5 million there. I wouldn't put it past them, but we live in a small society, and this particular car dealer, I don't know that they're particularly friendly to this particular government. I don't know that to be the case. I think it's the other way around, but who knows? That I cannot answer definitively, and I don't want to speculate.
Does this situation open up and show serious gaps in Antigua and Barbuda's procurement regulations and procedures? Or does it really raise questions about the ability of Mrs. Browne to manage that ministry? Or both?
In the minds of many citizens, both. I would have had conversations with, of course, being in the media, everybody wants to have their say or give you a sense of how they think. I don't have to tell you that. And even people within the Labour Party, they're not happy about this at all. This is not a good look for them. And how this is managed is going to really determine the future potentially of this government. Clearly, procedures were not followed. And the fact that this has gone on for as long as it has, and that's the other question, how long has this been going on for? The government asserts that this practice and this behavior predates 2014, which is when Gaston Browne would have assumed the leadership of this country as at the head of the Labour Party. And so essentially they're saying that members of the United Progressive Party, the opposition now, would have benefited from the same arrangements. And if that is true, I don't know that that is necessarily, I mean, just speaking as an observer of things, and I know many people are thinking along the same line, that does not justify what has happened for the last 10 years that you have been in office. Because at the end of the day, you're prime minister, you're minister of finance and corporate governance. I think that's what it's called, corporate governance, which means corporate governance, it implies that you're responsible for these very processes and procedures. And if these processes and procedures have been so lax that have resulted in this going on for as long as it has, it begs the question, how good is the corporate governance structure? How effective is it that this could have gone on? The Comptroller of Customs has resigned. The Prime Minister said that he told him in no uncertain terms he lost confidence in him. Those who are sympathetic to the Prime Minister will say, look, as head of government, you can't be aware of every single thing. Some things are going to slip through the cracks. But let's assume that $15 million is the figure. And chances are people will probably bet it's more than $15 million. What does that say about our governance structures? It's not a good look. It's not a partisan thing to say. It's not a good look. It's just honest. And when we're driving on roads that are less than Callistra, our roads are probably the biggest complaint of most citizens in this country. Our roads are not the best at all. And so when you're driving on these roads like this, and there are other shortfalls, let's say there are challenges with the healthcare sector, there are challenges with education in terms of resources to do things that are needed. People are going to say, oh, here it is, all this leakage is taking place to the tune of 15 million or whatever. And we don't have good roads to drive on. Our healthcare system could use some improvement. It's not imperfect completely, but it could do with some improvement. As with our education sector, we already stretch for resources because we're a small island developing state. How could this be allowed to happen? Very quickly, though, he has been moving quickly to address the situation. Some might say self-preservation. Some might say he's trying to correct the ship. I mean, at the end of the day, he is still finance minister and prime minister. He has to do something and be seen to do something. And so there's going to be an auction for those vehicles that are unassigned. So a lot of people are, joking on social media and saying they're waiting for the date of that auction because they'll be able to get a high-end vehicle ostensibly at a good price. The permanent secretaries who were involved, who were close to the situation, they've been moved around. But I think at the heart of this, very quickly as I sum up my response to your question, at the heart of this, people are concerned that the only person we're really hearing from is the Prime Minister.
Mm.
And
so has Maria Browne said
you see,
anything? Has the line minister where all of this was happening, the person with direct responsibility?
The chairman of the party, E.P. Chetgreen, he would have come out, I believe it's on Tuesday night, and his role was to essentially say, look, this has gone bad. We acknowledge that there's a problem, but we want to fix it, and we want to fix it with as little damage as possible to the people involved. He don't want to kill nobody. I mean, kill as in, a term. He doesn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to embarrass anybody beyond reason or try to, make life miserable for people. If you're or you benefited unjustly or fraudulently as a result of this, come to the government. Let's come to an agreement of restitution, and let's let bygones be bygones and move on. The opposition is not impressed with that. As far as your question, though, the Honorable Maria Browne, there was a Facebook post that she made so earlier this week. I can't remember the exact day, but I saw it. And she essentially is saying, look, whatever she does, everything that she does is in the interest of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. And she knows that there are people who are going to come after her. Of course, she went after the opposition, suggesting, they're trying to sully her name and all the rest of it. My friends in the Labour Party were not, some of them anyway, were not particularly moved by that. Of course, she has her supporters and so on. But they weren't particular. They thought she should have just not said anything
But
because in their
did the
minds,
post, Darren, did the post that she made, because I did not see that particular one, did it seek to
right.
provide any sort of explanation or apology or anything of the kind as a minister under whose ministry such a massive either corruption or squandermania or whatever it might be
Okay,
happened?
let me out of fairness to her, because I want to be fair. We who really have this career as being a host, or we practice the professional journalism. We try our best to be honest and fair to all sides. I certainly have no skin in the game here. I'm going to read a little bit of her post. I'm not one to share a lot on social media because of my nature. But because by nature I'm a quiet person. Daily, it is enough for me that I find gratification in just knowing that I have made and continue to make positive impacts on the lives of others and solving problems in scenarios that arise in my line of duty. My heart smiles every time I get the opportunity and make good on it to be the change that is necessary. From the day I took office, I have been met with many challenges, and through the grace of God, I have been able to surmount each one. What I face today is no different. Another decades-old loophole is being plugged in an effort to save our country money. Incidentally, those who crave power by whatever means want to spin this good deed to sully my good name in the hopes that it will propel them to victory, because on their own they have no merit. Under the principles of good governance and doing right by the people who put me there, I shall continue to serve our nation regardless of who likes me or not, and she has that in brackets, placed here by the people, working for the people to fulfill a purpose, and no amount of distractions will ever break my focus. A huge heartfelt thanks, I'm soon finished. Huge heartfelt thanks to everyone who reached out to me. I love and appreciate you all very much. A note to everyone out there, work towards your goals with pure intentions, as murky ambition will block your blessings. Do good and good will follow you. And she has a heart emoji. That was her statement on the matter.
Cute. And from what you
Um,
read there, Darren, I get the impression she's framing herself as the whistleblower and the person who is stepping in to have discovered this massive
right,
wrong that's been happening over time and is now
correct,
fixing it, and may also be the victim of an opposition frame up. This is what I'm getting
correct.
from what she said there.
That's what I think many people deciphered from it. There was no apology. There was no, okay, listen, I'm going to maybe step. There was nothing. I read is the statement in its entirety.
And so she is basically blaming the opposition, saying this happened long before I got here. I'm
Right,
going to try to fix it, but I'm definitely not
correct.
taking responsibility for this.
I didn't see anything like that at all in her statement, no.
Yeah, I didn't.
And that
I
that
didn't
is
get
at the heart of
Go ahead, Darren.
that. That's at the heart of the concern of a lot of people. That there's no acknowledgement that, hey, you know, we
How
we
long
we
has she been the
we
minister?
failed. Ah, that's a good question. I think she's been Minister of Public Works. To be honest, I don't want to hazard a guess. At least a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 2 years.
Okay, so she's
At least
fairly
two
new.
years.
She's
I think
fairly
it's
new
safe to say.
with the new administration, fairly new to
With
the
public
post,
work, I'm trying
with
to
this term.
recall. Let me see if I can find it online, or if I can. I wish I had someone nearby to help me out with this one. But at least 2 years.
In the Caribbean, we don't have huge production teams at our backs. We do
Yes,
everything.
yes, yeah. But yeah, you had another question though.
So the opposition has called for an independent investigation, but the finger is also being pointed at them. Have they responded in
Right.
any way about the narrative that they may also bear responsibility in this?
The Jamal Pringle, there was a Facebook post by one of our many news websites or Facebook pages that had a yellow card, the registration card of the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Jamal Pringle, suggesting that he too benefited from this whole situation. And he came out denying it. He said that he has nothing to do with this, and he did not benefit from it. So he essentially came out with a very forceful denial of any complicity or any being a beneficiary of this particular arrangement. But supporters of the government and the government itself has said, no, this thing goes back, way back. And this is basically, we're not the only ones with dirty hands here. The United Progressive Party, when it was in power, also similar arrangements were in place, and there are people who would have benefited in a similar way. Now, for those who are independent minded, who really are not members or supporters publicly of either party, the concern is clearly we have a problem of governance in the country. And so there needs to be an uncovering of what has gone wrong, for how long it has gone wrong or been going wrong. How much money are we talking about here? Is it really $15 million or is it $50 million? And the only how we're going to find that out is if there is an independent investigation. But again, the government is of the view that going through an investigation, that's going to cost money. Going through legal channels, that's going to cost money. And they think that that is not the productive way of doing it. All that I will say, my friend, is that the way they choose to handle this may very well determine the outcome of the next election. It may very well determine the outcome of the next election, because the opposition, as any opposition would, because to be fair, if it was UPP in office and the Labour Party was in opposition, I'm sure they would be saying the same thing. They want an independent investigation. They want an inquiry, because these things tend to, of course, undermine confidence in the incumbent. And as an opposition party, your job is to knock the incumbent off of its feet. That's the whole job of being opposition. And so it's going to be interesting. They are not without their challenges. Harold Lovell, as you know, is back, and he is rumored to be going for the position of political leader and, well, future prime minister, if it comes to that, of the party. Honorable Jamal Pringle maintains that he's the best man for the job. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out, and if this scandal equalizes or has any impact on the internal dynamics of the opposition party. So only time is going to answer all those questions, no matter how smart I sometimes think I am, or any political analyst. There's so many combinations and permutations. You just don't know how it's all going to come together and how the public is going to react to all of this. But the public is not happy. The public is not happy for the very reasons that I outlined earlier. Every time we hit a pothole, we're going to think about that $15 million.
That's 15 million. I actually thought it was 40 million. 15 million doesn't seem so much after all. But the number of vehicles, over 200 vehicles.
Listen, Callisto, one car dealer has agreed to pay back 10 million.
10
One
million.
car dealer.
And I'm looking at the numbers here. If one is paying back $10 million, then the 15 seems like someone missed a few numbers somewhere. If one person is accounting for 2/3 of the amount.
There are several car dealers. There's several car dealers in this country. Yeah.
And that is why the audit is important, but an independent investigation is important, because it must rub the people of Antigua the wrong way to know that the Prime Minister and his wife are investigating issues that happened under their ministry. They're basically investigating themselves. What went wrong with the governance oversight? What went wrong with the procurement procedures under the Ministry of Transport, which Mrs. Browne is in charge of? It just seems like you need independent people in there to look at this, even outside of a government audit, because a lot of government people were involved in the corruption or the squandermania or whatever it might turn out to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
how are they reacting? And you talked about the impact it could
mm,
have on the next general elections.
mhm.
What are the general sentiments of the people of Antigua on the ground as you listen, as they call into your program? How do they feel
Mhm.
about this?
Well, unfortunately, I don't, my programs are not so much call-in,
Mm,
but certainly based on programs that I've heard or listened to or heard about or comments on social media, people have been taking somewhat of a wait and see approach. In some respects, the reaction has been muted. The opposition, naturally, they smell blood in the water. They
mm,
smell blood in the water. They think this is a gift to them politically. The government, like I said, is trying to say, hey, no, not so fast. We're moving quickly to correct the challenges. We're moving quickly to correct the loopholes and the deficiencies in the system. And there's going to be restitution. So taxpayers are going to benefit. And they've established, or they are in the process of establishing a fund that is supposed to, address the needs of the people directly. So people will know, okay, of the 15, 20, $30 million that's paid back in this restitution program, people are going to tangibly see how that money is spent. So the government is hoping that that will sort of plug the dike or plug the hole in the dike, or the dam, right? I think we can all relate to dams and when there's a hole in the dam and the water. So essentially, they're hoping that it's going to plug the hole in the dam. But the opposition is, again, they're not having it. They almost every night, the opposition programs are very energetic. They think that, hey, look at this, Prime Minister and his wife, both of them responsible for this thing, and they're proclaiming their innocence. Of course, they're going to proclaim their innocence. Why would, if I were them, I would proclaim my innocence too.
mm,
I'm next to Jesus. Nothing to see here. My hands are clean. Um, Government supporters, they're they're hurt, they're embarrassed, and because some of them have actually come to my office to do business, and they call for me and they're like, Darren, look at what's going on. Um, they don't like the idea that the prime minister comes on the program and names individuals. He basically, call in the name of, the manager of the port, controller of customs who has resigned, the head of the transport board, a number of other persons whose names he's called. And they're basically saying, well, so everybody is guilty, everybody is doing wrong, but not you. And these are Labour Party people. So they're embarrassed by it. I mean, they love their party. The Labour Party is a powerful institution in this country. It's a legacy party. So clearly, that's just what it is. If my family has supported Labour Party since 1930s, my job has been as perhaps credited to the Labour Party. I'm going to be partial to the party, but they're not happy about it. Because at the end of the day, the pothole not any nicer to go through, whether you're a UPP or Labour Party supporter. It's the same pothole.
all right.
The impact of it affects us all. So
Mm,
it's clearly not a good look, and the government is going to have to be careful how it handles this entire situation. That's how I would frame the
mm.
whole discussion.
And certainly having to do your damnedest to protect your wife and to ensure that you don't get to sleep on the couch when you go home is an added challenge
I mean,
for our friend Gassy Dread, as he's now
yes,
known on social media. Which, although if we
correct.
want, it's too bad we're out of time because I did want to talk to you
Yeah,
about this whole Gassy Dread thing on Facebook that's going on there with your prime minister. But Daryl, that will have to be another conversation for another day.
another conversation for another time. Yeah,
Yeah, I see the look.
another conversation for another time.
Thank you so much.
He's unique. He's definitely a unique individual. He is unique. Love him or loathe him, Gaston Browne, he's unique.
He's special, and I look forward
He's
to Prime
special.
Minister Gaston Browne accepting
Yeah.
our invitation here in the narrative to join us on the
Mm,
program to talk about developments in his country. And obviously, we will add to the
mm,
list this new vehicle scandal because that had not
right.
happened at the time that we extended our invitation. Thank you so
When you
much,
send
Darren.
that, Okay.
All right. This is the
Uh,
narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. That was Daren Mathew-Ward, a journalist in Antigua and Barbuda, speaking about the multi-million-dollar vehicle scandal, procurement scandal that broke in Antigua recently. Prime Minister Gaston Browne announcing a few restitution measures and also announcing that an audit will take place, as well as an auction of some of the vehicles that have not yet been assigned to owners. The minister directly involved, who happens to be the Prime Minister's wife, Maria Browne, making a Facebook page saying that her hands are clean and that she is seeking to fix a decades-old problem, and framing it as an opposition frame job, I suppose. More when we come back.